Cyberpunk universe is based off the exact same universe as ours, except along the way a few things changed which completely altered the course. Now in the world of Cyberpunk, mega corporations control everything, and because there's so much power up for grabs for these corporations, a lot of them ended up getting involved with corporate wars. So in this video we are going to be going through each and every corporate war which has taken place within the Cyberpunk universe. Before I do get into the video, if you do want to talk any more Cyberpunk or even watch me play the game the second it is released on December the 10th, then there is a link in the description down below which will take you over to the Twitch stream. Just head over to there, drop a follow, and you'll be notified the next time I go live. Getting back into the video, ever since the collapse in the 1990s, there's been so much power up for grabs for different corporations. Those that are at the top can control absolutely everything, and it makes resources within a Cyberpunk universe that much more valuable. Because if you can get them and actually profit off them, you can actually be in control of different areas of the world, maybe even the whole world altogether. So for a lot of the corporations that are at the top, it's actually worth building an army, hiring terrorists, hiring netrunners, just so you can take out your competition. And that's exactly what these corporate wars have been about. In total, there have been 4 different corporate wars, and we are going to be going through each and every one of them. So to begin with, we have the first corporate war. This took place between August 2004 to February 2006, and this war was fought between the Euro business machine, also known as EBM, and also Orbital Air. The first corporate war began when EBM attempted a leverage buyout of Transworld Airlines, which was a failing business. EBM attempted to make a deal with the CEO of Transworld Airlines, but the CEO let the deal fall through. Orbital Air, another corporation interested in buying Transworld Airlines, blocked EBM's buyout attempt. After realizing what happened, EBM sought to eliminate Orbital Air's chances of purchasing Transworld Airlines. They hired terrorists to kidnap Orbital Air's business negotiation team, who were en route to meet Transworld Airlines. However, the terrorists failed in their mission, and later it became known that EBM was responsible for hiring them. Orbital Air, after discovering the identity of their attackers, recruited the Zetatech Technology Corporation as their ally in conflict. Zetatech hackers began a large-scale net attack against EBM, but EBM was able to repel the attack and force Zetatech out of the war. After defeating Zetatech in cyberware warfare, EBM began their own attacks. These were physical and also technological attacks against Transworld Airline and Orbital Air facilities. Both sides fought each other viciously using terrorism, net attacks, piracy, corporate solos, and also proxy soldiers from the third world. During this period, both companies lost hundreds of millions of euro dollars. What led to the end of this war in 2006 was when commandos employed by Orbital Air were able to attack, breach, and capture the compound of EBM. Ulf Grumwalder, who is the CEO of EBM, was forced to surrender to Orbital Air, and this was the end of the first corporate war. But despite this war ending in 2006, this was also the start of when the second corporate war was started to be in motion. The second corporate war didn't start until 2008 and didn't end until 2010. But in 2006, Sov Oil began producing Chu-H2, an alcohol-based fuel most commonly used to power vehicles. Petrochem, the primary producer of Chu-H2, offered to supply Sov Oil with updated technology to help Sov Oil drill, pump, and create their own fuels from untapped oil resources in Siberia. This offer came with the condition that Petrochem receive partial drilling rights. Shortly before the papers were to be signed on the Petrochem Sov Oil partnership, Sov Oil engineers announced that they had developed a drilling technology that made the deal unnecessary, and Sov Oil cancelled the deal at the last minute. In 2007, both companies began to expand into the South China Sea. This created tension and eventually boiled over into the beginning of the second corporate war. The war started in 2008 when the Sabina Bravo, an offshore platform owned by Petrochem, exploded. Petrochem accused Sov Oil of planting an explosive device on the platform, which kicked off the series of intense and public verbal battles between diplomats representing each corporation. After communication broke down, Petrochem launched the first military attack by ordering their own military divers to plant explosives on a Sov Oil platform in revenge. The platform was destroyed and a full-scale conflict began. Sov Oil had most of the initial success in the war, though both sides effectively crippled each other in just a few weeks in directly targeting and destroying oil facilities. Each company lost approximately 75% of their oil facilities within the first few weeks of the war. Partway through the war, Petrochem was able to briefly gain the advantage over Sov Oil. by capturing the Spratly Island chain and also assassinating the CEO and founder of SovOil using planes loaned from the government of Malaysia. Despite SovOil's losses, the corporation regrouped and was eventually able to overpower Petrochem. SovOil was able to repeatedly repel Petrochem's attacks. Towards the end of the war, it was actually discovered that the destruction of Petrochem's Sabina Bravo offshore platform, the event that convinced Petrochem to go to war with SovOil, was in fact an accident that SovOil was not responsible for. And this brought the end to the second corporate war within 2010. Moving on to the third corporate war. This would take quite a few years after the second corporate war. The second corporate war ended in 2010 and the third corporate war would begin in 2016. The third corporate war is different from the first and second corporate wars because the third corporate war was fought almost entirely on the net. Hostilities begin when examiners from Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce uncovered a confidence scheme being perpetrated by certain investment counselors at Merrill, Asuga and Finch against private investors using the Rothstein Fund as leverage. They notified the district attorney's office, who began an investigation the next day. The Rothstein Fund, angered by Merrill, Asuga and Finch duplicity and not wishing to get dragged down in the investigation, turned everything they had over to the DA's office. They also hired local street netrunners to begin probing Merrill, Asuga and Finch data fortresses in search for the truth. Merrill, Asuga and Finch administration took this move by former ally as a direct attack. They immediately countered by stepping up net security and unleashed their own net runners to launch an assault on the Rothstein Fund, first hitting Rothstein's financial targets. Then Merrill, Asuga and Finch strike teams turned their attention to actually destroying Rothstein computer systems, which escalated the fighting. Data fortresses became armed camps as everyone nervously watched to see what would happen next. Netwatch responded by limiting net access and cracking down on computer crime, making several sweeps resulting in numerous arrests and flatlines. Both the Rothstein Fund and Merrill, Asuga and Finch decided to take it to the world. They began hiring mercenaries during a 12-hour period. Short pitch battles were fought in LEO and on Earth, and all to destroy the physical location of the enemy's net communication gear. These battles ended with considerable loss of life and millions of dollars in material destruction. The next 6 months consisted of endless net raids, most of them inconsequential and undecisive. Indeed, more damage was done during the 12 hours of actual firefights than during the entire remainder of the conflict. When it was over, the Rothstein Fund ceased to exist as a single entity. Merrill, Asuga and Finch turned the corpses of 2 of their executives who had started the whole mess over to the DA. They also got stuck with the bill of damage done in LEO and also on Earth. What came from this war was more people begging for corporations to fight their battles on the net rather than it being within the real world. Because even though this is still labeled as a corporate war, the amount of loss of life is so much less compared to the other 2 corporate wars. But when 2021 did come round and hit, unfortunately, this was the start of the 4th corporate war and it was not going to be fought on the net. Just like the 1st and 2nd corporate wars, the 4th corporate war began when rival megacorps used their finances and military muscle to fight over buying out a company and its resources. In early 2021, IHAG, a megacorp that specializes in underwater shipping and tech, went bankrupt, which led to 2 rival aquacorps, Sino and OTEC, squaring off for a hostile takeover of IHAG's remaining assets. At first, both corporations engaged in the typical opening rounds of corporate battle, stock manipulations and economic warfare. But as the conflict grew out of hand, it was only a matter of time before true fighting broke out. Both aquacorps ended up hiring other corporations. OTEC hired Militech and Sino hired Arasaka. Both of these already had a feud going back and forth. Arasaka being a corporation that wanted to control the world, and Militech being one of the corporations that disagreed with Arasaka always tried to bring them down. And when OTEC hired Militech and Sino hired Arasaka, this was the time for them to see who was best, as both were major international megacorps at the absolute apex of corporate power in the world, each fielded armies with tens of thousands of troops. Both sides also possessed extreme advanced transportation and logistics systems, allowing them to strike at each other anywhere on the planet. The combination of sophisticated military technology and rapid deployment made it all but impossible for many legitimate nations to stop conflicts within their borders. Small engagements did not stay small for long, as worldwide forces from both megacorps began engaging in major battles that embroiled entire cities. Some of the victims swept up in these conflicts were major cities like Tokyo, Yokohama, Washington, Chicago, and Night City. Rio de Janeiro was reduced to rubble during this time and felt the effects of the war the hardest. As this corporate war carried on going, governments did try to get involved by nationalizing each corporation. Japan nationalized Arasaka, trying to keep its assets in Japan, and then the US government nationalized Militech, trying to keep the assets in America. As time went on, the war started to slow down, to the point of where the only place that this war took place was within Night City. This is also a good place to say that at this time, Sino and Otech, the people that actually contracted Militech and also Arasaka to be part of this war, ended up settling their own conflicts with each other way before this. But both Arasaka and Militech was still going at it. And what actually killed this war off and ended it was when a Militech strike team left a mini nuke in Arasaka American Division's headquarters, destroying it and the corporate plaza. This absolutely destroyed Night City, making certain areas inhabitable. After this explosion, the President of New United States, President Elizabeth Crest, blamed Arasaka for the explosion and the destruction of Night City. Arasaka was no longer allowed to operate in New USA, which forced them to go all the way back to Japan. After many years later, there was an opportunity that opened up, which did bring Arasaka back to Night City after it was all rebuilt. But that is a completely different story, because after the explosion within Night City, that was when the fourth corporate war came to an end. And so far, that has been the 4 corporate wars that have happened within the Cyberpunk universe. This has been a fairly long video because there is quite a bit to go through, and I did try to make it as short as possible so that it was easy to understand. So I may have missed out a few little details here or there, but these are the 4 corporate wars that have happened within the Cyberpunk universe. Some of these corporate wars, like the 4th corporate war, have taken out cities, whereas the 3rd corporate war really didn't do too much damage to the real world because it was mainly fought in there. Each one was fought over different resources, and each one had corporations that grew to power. If you do want to talk any more about these corporate wars, then there is a link in the description down below which will take you over to the Twitch stream. Currently stream every Monday, Wednesday and Friday, and when this game does come out, I will be going to hopefully daily streams. So if that is of interest to you, just make sure you go over there, drop a follow, and you'll be notified the second I go live. But anyway guys, I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did enjoy, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. But for now, I'm going to see ya.